Hello, everyone. Today we're here to talk about electrification. Um, Electrification, for those uninitiated, can sound a bit fancy or technical or a bit abstract, but really that's not what it means. It just means how do you make your home healthier? How do you reduce your energy bills? How do you make things more efficient in your home? And so we're going to take this topic today. We're going to tackle this topic just assuming you know very little and gradually kind of building up our knowledge together. So it should be accessible to everyone, whether you're a total optimization geek or whether you are coming into this topic for the first time. So we'll go through what is electrification. We'll talk about some benefits. We'll talk about some of the most common electrification upgrades. Do a little detour around special circumstances, and we'll try to make it really practical through making a plan and how this applies to your home with some practical steps. So let's get into it. S Step one or topic one, what is electrification? What does it actually mean? Electrification means switching your home or business to run on electricity rather than gas, petrol, or fossil fuels. And the goal is that all the energy that you use in your home comes from electricity and renewable sources, as opposed to from gas. And so this isn't really it's not really a niche topic anymore. It's not something that only the really, the enthusiasts do. In many cases, it actually makes more sense to go electric than to not be there, just from a cost perspective, from a reliability perspective, from, a health perspective, from lots of different benchmarks. And so, what we're going to get into is all the different parts of electrification here. And before we kind of dive into it too deeply, I guess I want to talk about a key idea that unifies all the things you see on the screen, including hot water heat pumps, home batteries, EVs, rooftop solar, electric cooking, reverse cycle AC. What do all of these things have in common? Well, um, number one is if you want to think about how to reduce bills at home, or how to reduce emissions, or how to become more energy independent, or a number of other goals that you might have, they all kind of are achieved through the same mechanism, which is how do you import less energy from the grid? How do you spend less money on petrol or on gas? How do you become more self-reliant so that you don't need to buy any of these things? Because as you reduce your energy imports, your energy purchases, uh, then the more of these benefits you receive. So there are two ways to get these benefits, two ways to reduce your energy imports. Number one is you uh, generate your own energy, and that's achieved through rooftop solar. That kind of ties everything together. And number two is how do you use that rooftop solar? How to use your own energy to power your own appliances? If you can do both of those things, then you don't really need to import much electricity or much gas at all. And so what we're going to cover today is how do you move towards a more electrified home, recognizing that it's not feasible for everyone to go full electric or to drop tens of thousands of dollars and upgrade your whole home. But there are still a lot of wins that most households can still benefit from. And even if you're picking choosing the aspects of this that make the most sense. So before we dive into it too deeply, let's do a quick poll. So I'm going to show a QR code on the screen. If you feel like getting some interesting um, insights into the rest of the room, just grab your phone and scan that, and there'll be a bit of poll there, and we'll talk a bit about the poll results and what everyone's on, and we can make this webinar a bit more tailored. So give that a go. Is that working for everyone?
We
Fantastic. I see.
have so far, I'm not sure, Jimmy, if you can see the results here, but they're up on my screen. So we have about 73% of people, about 70% of people are in a house, non-strata, without the closed brackets. About 30 odd percent are in a strata unit or townhouse.
Yeah. Fantastic. This is a pretty common split. It's easier to electrify in a freestanding house, but there are still many options for strata, which we can talk about as well.
Oh my gosh. And do you do strata well, Jimmy?
You'll
We're
make me blush
really
live.
we're really ramping up on the strata side of things this year, which hopefully will be really helpful for some people. There's also some great grant applications available and still open for solar for strata. How familiar are you with the concept of electrification? About 80% said I know a little bit, and about 20% said they're very familiar. So feel free to um, you know, grill Jimmy on any of your heavy questions at the end. Have you started your electrification journey? 56% said yes, 44% said no. If yes, what have you already done? Well, we've got half of those people have replaced gas cooker with electric or induction. About half have bought an EV. This is great. 42% have replaced gas hot water heater with efficient hot water heat pump. And about 50% have replaced gas heating with reverse cycle air conditioner, and 8% have said other. Now, of course, I'd be curious the whole evening to know what the other is, but I don't know what that is because haven't set it up for anybody to write it in. In terms of solar, we have about 30% of people in this meeting who have solar. About 40% do not, and about 30% don't yet have it, but are planning to.
Yeah.
In terms of the battery, we have about 20% who have a battery, 50% don't, and 30% not yet, but planning to. So great.
Fan-
Thank you so much. It's great to have some insights, and it's interesting for all of you to see, the mix of people who are in this webinar. So that's great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. That's also a really illustrative point because you can see that there's not one product that's dominant, which really shows that electrification is a journey. For most households, a multi-year journey. Um, and although you may always be moving towards electrification, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do everything, right? Maybe the first, maybe you get a couple of installations and they make sense for you and the rest don't, and that's totally fine. And so what we'll cover a lot today is kind of the different types of things you can do and what scenarios that make sense. So that will all come in due time. Why don't we start with the benefits of electrifying your home and business first? Let's give you guys more of a reason to think about this. So the four main benefits really: energy costs, property value, energy independence, health benefits, and sustainability. So let's cover all of those. So I always start with energy because regardless of your goals, regardless of whether you want to get the coolest tech or whether you're trying to save the planet or whether, you're trying to show off to your neighbors or whatever your motivations are for thinking about electrification, the one thing that everyone always cares about is saving money on energy costs because that is something that will benefit us all. And so the first chart to show you guys is this one. It's actually a few years outdated. Um, it shows the savings you can get from going from a gas, petrol, and electric home, sorry, gas and petrol home to a solar and electric home. And the reason I'm pointing out the fact that it's a little bit outdated is because the difference is even wider now with increasing energy costs. And so really, the business case for electrifying is greater than ever, greater than ever. So the two main components of this chart, you'll see that on the left here, under petrol bills, you can see this is where most of your energy costs actually go. You're actually spending money on petrol. And if you don't do that anymore through an EV, that is where your greatest the biggest chunk of your savings could come from. But obviously, the EV is a really big expense. But with aside from petrol bills, you look at your own home that you have gas bills and electricity bills. So these are things like heating, water heating, your computers, your fridges, all of that sort of stuff. And um, switching from electrifying has two benefits. The first benefit is that in most cases, electric is generally more efficient than gas. So just by switching from gas to electric, the average household can save $2,250 a year if you're kind of like an on all gas household. Secondly, is once you've got all your appliances off gas to electricity, wow, you can now power your home through your own solar. And that's where the rest of your savings can come from. So collectively, you could save 5,000, 6,000 plus dollars a year on energy bills by electrifying. So that's kind of the state that we want to get to, right? If we can reduce petrol and gas imports, we can make our electric appliances more efficient, then we can power it through solar. You're going to save a lot of money. As I alluded to earlier, your savings will probably increase over time because if you electrify your home now, what you're really doing is you're locking in your energy costs. uh, Not all of it, but a significant proportion of it because you're generating yourself. Let's say you pay for a solar right now, or that cost of the solar is already paid for. And so you're insulated from the effect of rising energy bills. If your energy retailer doubles your price, then you're not going to be affected nearly as much as someone who's not generating any of their own energy or whose home is very energy inefficient. Number two, the second benefit is increasing property value. So many people have heard of this study before, but it's worth reinforcing. The Domain did a bit of a study on the impact of energy efficient features, including electrification upgrades and solar, and how that affected your property value. And it showed that houses were 23% more valuable and units were 11% more valuable. So you can argue, okay, how much was that due to the seller? How much was that due to the double glazing? How much of that was due to the energy efficient water heater? That's true, but whichever way you look at it, that is quite a meaningful difference, and it does show that the market is increasingly educated about energy efficiency and sees it as something that makes a house more valuable. Number three, energy independence. So, as one aspect of energy independence we talked about already, which is insulation from rising energy bills. But the other aspect is just blackout protection. If you have solar panels and battery, you can keep things on during a blackout. You can keep a fridge on, your Wi-Fi on, a couple of lights, and that makes your house look much cooler than your neighbors who are completely dark during a power cut. Next, we have health benefits. This mainly applies to gas, and especially gas cooking. So gas cooking releases nitrogen dioxide and a bunch of other toxic gases, and it's been shown through the Asthma Council that it's linked to 12% of childhood asthma cases. So that's actually quite a significant correlation, and it's worth considering for the health merit on its own. Aside from that, you have gas for water heating and gas heating. And obviously, if you're burning gas indoors, that's going to be a lot more harmful than if you're burning gas outdoors. So I would say on the health benefit side, the generally speaking in Sydney, switching from gas cooking to induction cooking is where you are motivated most by health, because gas heating is less common in Sydney, and if you have gas water heating, that's usually outside. Number five, reducing your carbon footprint. So here's a here's some numbers. A fully electrified and energy efficient home can save around 37 tons of CO2 over 10 years, and this is even higher for homes with solar and battery. And so all these numbers, which I'm sure you guys have seen different versions of at different points of time, it's a bit hard to kind of grapple your head around, right? It's like, how much is a ton? Is that a lot? Is that big? Is that small? I'm not sure. But think about it this way. The majority of CO2 emissions or just greenhouse gas emissions from Australia are due to energy. And so if you're reducing your energy imports, like I said earlier, through either making your home more efficient, getting off gas, or generating your own solar, if you're reducing your energy imports, you're reducing the number one contributor to greenhouse gases from Australia. So if you're looking for one thing to do, I'm a strong believer that energy is the biggest lever that any of us really have. Uh, because at the end of the day, all greenhouse gas emissions just come from energy usage. couple of benefits for renters and landlords as well. So for renters, if your home has energy efficient appliances or solar, you obviously have less energy bills. For landlords who have to pay for all of these upgrades, it's quite common to negotiate an increase in rental value or average rent, which, so we can share the benefits of the installations more equitably. For businesses, we have a pretty similar set of benefits with reducing bills, protecting the business from future price rises. If you have a fleet of vehicles, you can reduce the OPEX of your fleet by charging through electricity that's cheaper as opposed to um, filling it up with gas. There are also tax incentives available, and reducing energy anywhere significantly reduces your greenhouse gas emissions. All right, enough of our benefits. Let's go into what we can actually do and what the options are. So there are a couple of main products that we'll go through. Let's start with EVs and EV charging. So you remember the chart I referred to earlier where it showed, roughly speaking, half a household's energy um, use coming from petrol. And fact is, EVs, love them or hate them, they're just a lot more efficient because there's no combustion, there's no pesky explosions creating all of this, noise and sound and all this heat that doesn't get used in a very useful way. EVs are much more efficient, and that means that the energy that an EV that you put into an EV, a much higher proportion of that will get turned into useful motion compared to a petrol vehicle. Going hand in hand with getting an EV is installing a home EV charger. So this is optional. You don't have to do this, and many households wouldn't make sense to do this if you're not in a financial position to do so. But if you get an EV, you can charge it just by plugging it into a wall. But you can also install a home EV charger, or just let you charge it faster. And charging faster has a few benefits. Mainly, it's control over when and how much to charge. So this is especially powerful if you have, say, solar and you have free electricity during the middle of the day, and you want to charge, you want to soak up as much of that as you can through a fast charger. So that's an example where an EV charger might make more sense. And um, Another example is, again, say that you have solar, you want to detect when you have excess energy from your solar and you want to divert that to your EV, but you don't want to charge outside of that. And that's totally fine too. So to give you an idea of the difference in operating costs, here's a nice little chart. So let's go from left to right. For a medium-sized petrol car, you might need 7 liters per 100 Ks. Pretty kind of average energy fuel efficiency. Assuming $1.80 a liter for petrol, that's about 1,200 a year, or $12.6 per 100 kilometers. You take the same size car and it's an EV, and just by virtue of the fact that it's much more efficient, you're halving your cost per 100 kilometers. So it's much cheaper to run. And this is charging from the grid. So this is not even using your own solar. This is just plugging it into the wall and getting your standard electricity tariff from your energy retailer. If it's if you have your own solar, it's much cheaper because you're not importing anything. You're just using the energy that you generate. And you have a properly sized solar system, you will have plenty of excess for your EV during the middle of the day, and you can charge it at a significantly reduced cost. So notice that this is actually a really good illustration of electrification as a whole. The first point being that gas and non-electric appliances tend to be less efficient anyway. Uh, so just switching from petrol to electric gets you a whole bunch of savings. And then now that you have electricity, that means you can now power that with your own solar, reducing your costs even further. That's a theme that we're going to come back to again and again today. Ready for product number two. Let's talk about hot water heat pumps. So a hot water heat pump is a way of heating your water at home for your showers, for your taps, etc. And The way it works is it's well, let's just get on the same page about what we're talking about. You probably have a hot water cylinder at the side of your home, or you have a little unit mounted on your wall. It's an instantaneous gas unit, or you have a little, a little small electric cylinder under the cupboard somewhere. But somehow you are heating water at home, right? A hot water heat pump is just another way to do that. It's a way to replace what you currently have with this new device called a hot water heat pump. And it's basically a hot water cylinder that heats water in a different way. So instead of just putting electricity through a coil and heating it up and the water, gets heated up through that, instead it works like a reverse fridge. The hot water heat pump takes all the heat that in the ambient air, it sucks it up and it forces it into the cylinder instead. And this way, it's a lot more energy efficient, 3 to 4 times more energy efficient than a traditional electric cylinder or a gas cylinder hot water heater because you're not generating heat to heat the water, you're just moving heat around. So anything that's a heat pump is generally much more efficient than the non-heat pump equivalent. So depending on your household size, depending on the type of water heater that you have today, you could save $300 to $1,000 a year on energy bills, sometimes more. So what do I mean by what determines that range? So on one end of the spectrum, let's say you're a household of one or two, and you have an instantaneous gas hot water heater, a little unit on a rectangular thing that's mounted on your wall, you're probably not going to save that much because you're not using that much hot water. And instantaneous gas hot water systems are the most efficient type of gas heater you can get. On the other hand, let's say you are a household of four or five, and then you have um, a gas hot water system in a giant cylinder or a regular electric resistive hot water system in a giant cylinder that's not a heat pump, then you might save $1,000 a year. So consider the efficiency of your existing system when you're thinking about whether this is going to be the best next step for you. Next, let's talk about induction cooking. So induction cooking is a way to cook, but without gas. What it does is it's um it's a smooth surface, an induction cooktop, and then on the induction cooktop, you put your pots and pans, and rather than heating up the surface of your cooking surface and having that heat kind of transfer, through to the pan and then heating up the pan, instead there are magnets and magnetic currents that are swirling around in the induction cooktop, which then uh, trigger an effect in the pan itself. And this way, the energy gets transferred from the cooktop to the pan without, with very high efficiency in between. And there's a couple of benefits of this. The first one is that it's a lot more efficient energy-wise. Um, I would say that practically speaking, you're not going to notice much of a cost difference for induction cooking, partly because most of your energy is not being spent on cooking, and partially because when you work out the actual gas tariffs and electric tariffs, gas, the cost of gas is actually a little bit cheaper. So it kind of counteracts the higher efficiency of induction cooking in this case, which will make it a little bit better. And you might save, you might save $50 a year or something in that ballpark, right? So what I'm saying is induction cooking, you would normally get induction cooking because of the health benefits, or you want to get off gas, or you want to be energy efficient, or you believe in electrification. And this normally isn't the first thing you do if you're trying to save money. However, I will add that if this is your last gas appliance, the main benefit is that you can get rid of your gas bill completely. Because if this is your only gas appliance, then maybe $200 a year of your gas bill is actually just a daily supply charge. Even if you're using very little gas, you still have to pay for your right to use the gas network. So if you're being kept on the gas network because of gas cooking, that is the best time to get to switch off to induction cooking if you haven't already. Couple of other benefits. Number one, oh, bullet point three, I should say, is that they're safer because there's no open flames, there's no gas. Um, the cooking surface, the induction cooktop surface is cool. It's not hot. It's only the pan that gets hot. So it's a lot it's it's a lot safer than gas or some or electric ceramic cooktops. I should talk about that for a moment. A lot of people, when I talk about induction cooktops, they say, "Oh, I've already got that. Tried it. Doesn't work. It's really slow. It's really bad." But chances are they've tried is an electric ceramic cooktop, which looks like this, looks very similar to an induction cooktop, except how it works is there's a heating element, and you have that heating element heating up the pan. And just want to emphasize that that is different from an induction cooktop, where there are no heating elements in the cooktop itself. It's just purely sending energy through magnetic currents directly to the pan. And because of this method of energy transfer, the cooking experience is much better because the energy gets to the pan much quicker and you can boil water a lot faster and it's a lot more responsive. Final call out is that to make induction cooking work, you do need specific cookware that's compatible. Most cookware, I would say, chances are most of your cookware at home is probably already induction compatible. The market's been going this direction in quite some time. And the test you can use is just get a magnet, see if it sticks. If it sticks to the bottom of your pan, it's induction compatible. Awesome. Let's talk about air conditioning. Everyone knows what air conditioning is. People often think of it as a way to stay cool in summer. And most people are aware that reverse cycle air conditioning can heat your home in winter as well. So, um, why, you know, why are we talking about air conditioning? Well, if you think about where your energy is being used as a household, the biggest use overall is in petrol. But take that aside, what the biggest use of energy inside the home is actually in heating and cooling. And uh, depending on the type of heater you have, reverse cycle air conditioning could be significantly more efficient. So here's a chart that we made that's based on data from Sustainability Victoria. It's basically a chart of the annual cost per square meter to heat your home. Granted, this is based on Victoria, but the numbers aren't important. The comparative difference in the numbers are important. So way on the very left, a traditional electric heater, you plug it in. It's a it's it's a portable unit. You plug it in, heat your room. That's actually really expensive. That's $30 a square meter per year. It's a little bit. It's even more expensive than electric underfloor heating. That's just heating your floor constantly. And if you have a gas heater, that's pretty bad too for energy efficiency. You can see as we move along the chart to the right that reverse cycle air conditioning is on the very right, the cheapest way to heat your home and 3 to 4 times more cost effective compared to an electric heater. So you're seeing a theme here. Anything with a heat pump is about 3 to 4 times more efficient because it moves heat around the place as opposed to generating it on the spot. And so air conditioning can be a big expense. It's just something to keep in mind when thinking about what order you want to upgrade things in. And let's talk about the right order a little bit later. If you don't have air conditioning and you're thinking about putting in, please do not put in anything. Don't put in a gas heater. That's kind of going in the wrong direction. Yeah, you might have a portable electric heater as a temporary thing. That's totally fine if you need a heater. But in terms of a long-term solution, basically reverse cycle air conditioning is the most efficient way to go. All right, let's talk about what replaces what. So here are all the main products we talked about. EVs replace petrol and diesel cars. Hot water heat pumps replace gas or electric hot water. Induction cooking replaces gas stoves. Reverse cycle air conditioning replaces gas heating and cooling. Solar and battery replaces your grid supply. So collectively, these are the main electrification products, and we are moving away from consumable fossil fuels, not only from a sustainability perspective, but just it's just much cheaper to not use them. And then given that you can power your whole home through electricity, if you have solar and a battery, you're suddenly cutting your reliance on the grid. That is the end point that most households aspire to. Um, Again, not every household needs to get there. You might be limited by budget, technical feasibility, doesn't make sense. Maybe you like gas for some reason, that's fine. But whatever parts of this, you can pick and choose. Whatever parts of this make sense for you, you will get incremental benefits along the way. It's not that you need to do all of it or do nothing. So we talked about all the ways to make your home more efficient and how to get off gas, but let's talk about solar and battery itself. Here are some obvious facts that you know. Solar panels generate electricity from sunlight. Great. Um, what does a battery do? Well, the primary role of a battery is to store energy when it's cheap and then use it when it's expensive. So that generally means you're storing energy generated from your solar panels during the middle of the day, and you're using it in the evening when electricity is most expensive. And to give you an idea how they go together really, really well, if you install solar for your home, a properly sized solar system that's got plenty of energy for what you need, um, it will still probably cover maybe 40, 50% of your actual consumption because you're only using 40 to 50% of your energy during the day. Obviously, there's a variation if you work from home, if you're retired, etc., etc. But 50%, half half. Think about it this way: half your energy is daytime, half your energy is used at nighttime. What a battery does is take all that excess energy that you're generating in the daytime that you can't use, and you're storing it in a battery so you can use it at night. So solar alone, you might reduce your energy consumption by 40, 50%. With solar and a battery, you might reduce your energy consumption by 80, 90%. When I say energy consumption, I don't mean how much you're actually using. I mean how much you are consuming from the grid, how much you are buying, how much you are paying for. And just to kind of bring it back to um, the benefit side, if you're reducing your energy consumption or energy imports by 80 to 90%, you're reducing your energy bills by 80 to 90%. You're reducing your greenhouse gas emissions of your household by 80 to 90%. That is a pretty powerful lever, especially when you think about that at a national level. So how does a battery work? Let's go through a specific example. So follow along with me as we delve into this chart. What does this chart mean? Lots of complicated numbers and colors. Let's start at let's start at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. You have no energy in your battery. You're importing energy from the grid. That's the red lines, right? And so that's energy you're paying for. But what happens, say 7, 8 a.m., your solar starts coming online. And what happens is your total solar generation is that big green line, that big green curve. So where's that solar energy you're generating going? Well, a proportion of that solar energy being generated is being used by you. That's called solar self-consumption. So that's the gray or light green line at between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's you using your own solar. All that is energy you don't need to import from the grid anymore. That's fantastic. Where else is your solar being used? Well, if you look at the orange section, that is energy that is being used to charge your battery because you have excess solar, you have an empty battery, so you're going to charge the battery. And then if you look at the dark green line, that is energy that you don't need because you're powering everything you need at home and your battery is full. So any excess gets exported to the grid and you get a small benefit from that. And so exports don't make you much money anymore. You're paid automatically by the energy retailer for anything you export. This is called your feed-in tariff. It's typically 4 cents per kilowatt hour these days. Compare that to 34 cents per kilowatt hour for energy you need to import. So it's much more beneficial for you to use your solar to avoid imports as opposed to using this to, getting excess solar to sell to the grid. So we're not going to talk about VPPs or energy trading today. So I'm talking about in a general scenario for households who are the average household who's just trying to make their home more self-sufficient. So what happens at 6 p.m.? Well, your battery is full, your solar stops generating, and so what happens is that when your solar stops generating, you're going to start using the energy stored in your battery, and that's the purple. And so you can see that you're self-consuming your battery all through the night until about 4 a.m. when your battery runs out. So collectively, all the purple or the light gray, light green, that is all energy that you would have needed to purchase that you no longer need to purchase because your solar and battery system is taking care of it. And the red part, that's energy you still need to purchase because you know your battery wasn't fully charged for whatever reason, your battery was too small or whatever. So that's why I say 80 to 90% energy independence is a reasonable ballpark estimate for many households. Cool. Let's talk about special circumstances. Businesses. The general idea for businesses is pretty similar. It's exactly the same. You have the same goals. You're trying to get off gas, make use of more efficient appliances and empower those with solar. The main differences are that commercial, you're using a lot more electricity. So that's different. You have systems that are larger, you have appliances that are bigger, you have more complex kind of load profiles. And it is you're probably going to need more of a tailored process for your specific situation, your specific business. Um, but depending on how similar your scale is to a residential home, it could be very similar. Say a church. If you run a church, a daycare, a small building like that, very, very similar to households. But if you run a business park, very different. Another scenario is strata. So strata, the idea exactly is still the same, but it just makes doing anything harder. So in strata, there are two kind of areas you can think about. One is things you can do in your unit, and one is things you need to do collectively as a building, as represented by the strata committee. So for your unit, you can do things like upgrade from gas cooking to induction cooking. You can install reverse cycle air conditioning. And if the hot water system for your unit is individual, as in it's within your unit itself, then you can upgrade to a hot water heat pump too. But solar and EV charging is something that usually needs to be done through the strata committee for the building itself. So um, even if you're doing something for your own individual unit, most of the time you're going to require some level of strata approval. Often it's counted as a minor renovation. But if you want to do something for your entire building, then it needs to likely go through an AGM or EGM, and you need 50% of voting owners to agree. So, um, one thing to flag is that there's a really good rebate on at the moment for solar for apartment buildings. That's 50% off. Applications close March 2026. So we can help you with this if your strata committee is reasonably motivated and wants to go through the process. Just keep in mind that applications are going to close quite soon. All right. Heritage. So for heritage buildings, it's there are often more requirements or more restrictions as to, for example, you can't have solar panels facing the street or in certain places, or um, there are additional DA requirements that you need to work through. And so the thing is that you might need to work through some of these considerations with the council's DA team. You also might have situations in heritage buildings where you have your meter boards and wiring is quite old, which is quite common, and they need to be upgraded. And finally, you might have some unusual buildings, um, homes that are uniquely shaped, or roof of different material, or things that aren't standard. So when I look at a roof for solar, I usually have an idea of whether I think this roof is a friendly roof or a non-friendly roof. So a friendly roof for solar looks like a few large roof faces that you can fit a lot of panels on. It's very easy, and they're tile or tin or something very standard. An unfriendly roof is you have a roof with lots of different faces facing different directions, and you can put one or two panels in each direction, and that makes it a lot harder. Um, an unfriendly roof is one has a lot of shade, and that's just an example for solar. So generally speaking, if your home is a bit more unusual, it'll probably be harder and a bit more expensive. Cool. All right. How are we doing? Ready to make a plan? So, what does making a plan mean for electrification? Well, the first thing to consider is that electrification can be a multi-year process. And this isn't to say that it needs to be a multi-year process. If you have tens of thousands of dollars and you're ready to just, you are solved, you're good to go, go for it. There are providers out there that will just electrify your whole home in one go. But if you are trying to get the best bang for buck, if you're budgeting, if you're trying to test things out and see how they go, or you want to kind of enjoy the journey, kind of pick each product that's kind of going into your home and get used to it, then it's often done in stages over several years. And if you plan ahead, there are a couple of benefits. If you know that that's the direction you're going, even if you're not going to do everything at once, there are things you can do today. For example, you can come up with a plan for when old appliances fail. So one example of this is hot water. Most people, they never think about hot water until the day they run out of hot water because their old unit's broken. So you call this your cold shower day. If you've never thought about this on your prior to your cold shower day, you're going to call the plumber, you're going to say my hot water system's broken, come fix it. They're going to come and going to replace it like for like, and they're going to give you the exact same thing, which is going to give you inefficient power consumption for the next 10 years. Alternatively, if you have kind of already thought about it, you're pretty sure that a hot water heat pump is appropriate for your home. You've researched a few models and have an idea of who you want to talk to. The day your cold shower happens, you pick up the phone, you send an email, whatever, and you get your hot water heat pump in, and then you just taken this opportunity um, to upgrade a less efficient appliance to a much more efficient appliance. Another advantage is that you can take advantage of rebates and incentives when they're available. So solar and battery especially, they have quite generous federal rebates, but these rebates go down a little bit every single year. And so have you don't want to be waiting, constantly for prices to come down because the price is actually going the even if prices are coming down, they're counterbalanced by the rebates falling too. And in the case of the solar for apartment residence grant, the current deadline is in March, so you want to not avoid that if you're thinking about it already. And then finally, you want to prioritize the upgrades that give the most expensive benefit first. So what do we mean by that? This is a very interesting topic. So here is one example. Well, not one example. Here is a slide with a bunch of different examples. If you have an EV, sorry, if you have a petrol car that's old and inefficient and you're planning to replace it anyway, great time to consider an EV, right? Because it's very hard to justify selling your 3-year-old Toyota Corolla. But if you have a car that's been around for 15 years, you're going to replace it anyway, this is a good time. Reverse cycle air conditioning. Again, if you have um, concerns around using gas heating in your home, or if your gas heating bills are really high, then that's a great time to do it. But if you don't really use heating that much, or you're really pretty efficient already, then maybe it's not important. Hot water heat pump we talked about. If your existing hot water heater is nearing end of life, you use a lot of hot water because you have a large household and your existing system isn't too efficient, then yes, you can upgrade that. Alternatively, you can uh, if your heat is quite new, gas instantaneous, maybe you want to leave it for a while. Induction cooking, if you're really concerned about the health effects of gas on your kids, on asthma, go for it. Or maybe you don't really cook that much, or maybe you just had a kitchen renovation with a brand new gas stove and you're quite proud of it actually, and you want to actually enjoy it for a bit longer. That's okay. And finally, for solar and battery, the main determinant of viability is usually your roof, your shade, and your electricity use. So if you have really high electricity bills, you're going to get a lot of savings. If your electricity usage is very low, you probably won't get that much savings. It might make sense to get off gas first to increase your savings. Great. So let's talk about government incentives. I do see a few questions coming through the channel, so we'll definitely cover all of those at the end. Um, there's a bunch of rebates that we're going to have here on the screen, but I'm not actually going to talk about them that much. Why? Because practically speaking, the installers have all factored these rebates into your prices and your quotes already. And what that means is that whatever quotes you get have already accounted for these. And what that means is that for all intents and purposes, these rebates have and incentives have set a new market price that you don't need to worry about. You don't need to claim these, you don't need to do anything. It's just that the quotes you get have a discount with these included in them. And the main call outs here are for the federal rebates, they go down a little bit every year. For the New South Wales rebates, they depend on the efficiency of the appliances that you're replacing. So if you're placing something that's less efficient, you'll get a little bit more. So let's talk about an example plan for a household. So you could have, for example, in year one, maybe your first action is to replace gas heating with reverse cycle air conditioning. This is because you use a lot of heating, it's really expensive, you're concerned about health, and also you're not using enough energy to justify solar. So it might make sense to replace gas heating first, and you get a bit of annual savings there. And then after that, suddenly your electricity usage jumps up and your gas bill goes down by a lot. Then you think, okay, now I'm going to install rooftop solar and a battery. And you're going to not just install solar for your current energy usage, but you're going to design your system to account for your future energy usage as well for full electrification. So you might get a system that's slightly larger and more future-proof. And then you'll get a lot of savings from your solar and battery. And then you think, okay, my house is already pretty efficient now. I'm pretty happy, but I'm really annoyed at my gas bills still. And um, the next most inefficient thing in my home is gas hot water. So I'm going to replace gas hot water with a hot water heat pump. And if I do that, I only have one appliance left on gas. So I might as well get rid of gas entirely by switching from gas cooking to induction cooking. And that will get me a final chunk of savings within the household itself. And then you have a really low energy usage home that you're really pleased about, and you're pretty happy for a while. And then year four, you think, okay, my car's finally about to die, or actually it's time for a new car, I need a bigger car, larger family, upgrade, whatever reason, time to get an EV. And now you get your EV and you already have the solar system ready to go that's available to accept it, as in that's ready to provide energy to your new EV, and then you're going to cut out a substantial portion of your petrol bills, and it'll be mostly offset by your solar, and so you're not actually paying very much at all. And by year five plus, you've already taken advantage of most of the opportunities in your home. So all you really have remaining are, I guess, these things like insulation, double glazing, they do make your home more comfortable, and that's a really big benefit. But they have less impact on savings compared to some of the earlier um, upgrades. So with these, you probably in this particular household example, you might do that last. So that's just one example of a plan. And you can see that every step of the way, you're doing something that has a good ROI. You're doing something that it makes sense on its own. You're not just doing it for the sake of it with no benefit, but you're taking steps towards a grander plan and you're considering the plan, your eventual situation as a whole, and making the next step easier. Cool. So let's take a quick break and let's do another poll. So I'm going to leave that there and have fun, guys. Have a quick scan. I will be right back. I'll get a grab a glass of water and I'll be with you in 20 seconds.
Actually, a lot of people, thanks, Jimmy. Actually, a lot of people had already completed it earlier. So um, you, you guys can see what we can't see. So I had no idea when I activated the second poll earlier that actually you could see it. And so half the people already jumped in and started answering it. So this is only 3 questions. We'll talk through what we've got here. We've got what would be what are your reasons for electrifying your home business? 81% said save on energy costs and also reduce your carbon footprint by getting off gas, petrol, diesel, which is fantastic. And 40% said increase property value and for the health benefits. Question 2, what do you think you might electrify in the next 12 months? 31% said buy an EV, 31% said replace gas cooker with electric induction. I've just replaced my gas cooker with an induction. It's pretty exciting and feeling pretty smug, and yeah, it's efficient. I'm pretty impressed. And I've also put in solar and a battery as well. So got the trifecta, which was brilliant. Still got a way to go with my own journey of getting off gas entirely. 30% said replace gas cooker with electric induction. As I said, about 40% said replace gas hot water heater with the hot water heat pump. I'm on my second hot water heat pump and I can attest that they're fantastic. My first one lasted over 15 years. Really happy with them. They're a little bit more expensive to buy, but just so much cheaper to run, especially if you've got 3 or more people in your house or business. It's feels like a bit of a no-brainer for me. And 25% said they're looking to replace gas heating with reverse cycle air conditioning. And 70% said looking to add solar and a battery so they can be fully renewable. And the interesting one here, what is your biggest barrier to electrifying your home and business? Not surprising, it's cost. It's one of those sort of long-term benefits. Lack of information. So we're really hoping that, so that's about 56% of people. So we're really hoping that Jimmy's chat here will be helpful. And we can see we've got a lot of questions in the chat, so it'll be great. So we'll talk through those when we've finished. Technical challenges. That's what Jimmy and Zapcat are here to help with. You can book in for a chat with them at any time. And literally, as council, we're paying for our residents to have access to Zapcat's expertise and time, 44%. So we're all time poor, but I guess we're all trying to do what we can. So there we go. That's the poll. Back to you, Jimmy.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for backing up what I'm saying. When I said earlier that everyone cares about costs, so that generally is the case. So we find that cost is a very good entry point, but again, just reaffirming that it's a good, generally speaking, a good financial decision in addition to having the other benefits too. Cool. So let's summarize. How do you electrify your home? Couple of quick steps. Number one, identify the items you want to transition. Um, these are particularly gas appliances or appliances that are old. Those are kind of your targets. Number two, decide when you want to transition. I think this is kind of, you would do kind of 2 and 3 together, which is you're getting a sense for each item. How much would it cost now? How much would I save now? Are there any time-sensitive rebates now? How much would it, how much, I get some quotes, I confirm these prices, and then you figure out if it's worth it or not. You're generally trying to compare savings and payback for each one at each step, right? And you're kind of iterating through, and then you generally come to a view for what the next thing should be. So my advice here is don't try to plan your whole home. You will get overwhelmed. You're going to get 20 quotes. No, 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 that's unrealistic. You're going to get like 10 quotes from like, 10 different providers for 10 different things. You're going to get overwhelmed. So my advice is pick the thing that you think you are most confident in, that seem to make the most sense. Maybe you're tossing up between two. That's fine. Research but those two things, and just do things one at a time. Um, as long as you have electrification goal in mind, tell that to each provider that who's installing that item in case there's anything they need to consider. But you don't need to have this grand master plan from day one, right? It's quite common to install something um, and then iterate. And once all your items are, or once all your gas appliances are off, then call up your gas retailer and say, "Hey, can you please disconnect my property? And I would like to no longer pay the supply charge. Thank you very much." So there's a new due to legislation. There's a mandated cost for fully abolishing gas at your home, which means that you can, how do I explain this? In the past, sometimes the gas companies say, "Hey, we're gonna charge you $1,000, $2,000 to come and remove all the pipes and meters and things from your home. Otherwise, we're not going to get rid of your gas daily supply charge." What I'm saying is, there's legislation coming in where that's going to be significantly cheaper. It's going to be, I think, capped at less than $200 if I remember. That's coming in, if I remember correctly, middle of next year. Um, so that won't be a barrier anyway. But even, you don't necessarily need to abolish your gas. You can, in many cases, just disconnect your gas account and you will still avoid paying the supply charge. Anyway, that was a quick detour to getting off gas. But generally speaking, when you're electrifying your home, decide what you want to transition, maybe the top two items. Out of the top two, figure out the cost savings, time sensitive rebates, get a feel for what you want to do, and then go ahead with the thing one at a time, and then come up with your next top two. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to do everything at once. There's usually one thing that makes the most sense. Great. So how do you get more support? So there are some great resources at the Northern Beaches website. Feel free to check out the links. I'm sure um, these will be in the recording or when they're sent around as well. And the second thing is you're more than welcome to book a free consultation with a member of the team at Zapcat. You can ask us anything about solar, energy efficiency, hot water heat pumps, all sorts of things. Scan the QR code below to book a free chat. This is a free consultation. This is a free service for Northern Beaches residents. We're very happy to talk to you, happy to give advice, happy to review quotes and give you our thoughts. Um, and then finally, another thing that is available is information sessions run by the
Well,
council. Kat, I don't know if you
I
want to talk
guess I
about
should talk about those. Um, yes, I don't know if you've been onto our solar and energy web pages, but there is a lot of information in there, including about rebates, government rebates and everything, energy efficiency, solar, batteries. Oh, I'm not sure if I've put battery information on there yet, but if I haven't, I will be soon. We've just added information recently about specifically about solar for strata. Um, and just giving the solar for strata a plug again. I know Jimmy talked about it earlier, but with this grant that's available, it's incredibly good value. So yes, if you know anybody who's in strata, it's really worth mentioning it to them. And so we constantly have events and things going on. We have a drop-in solar and energy roadshow that sort of travels around the council, the LGA. Generally, it's in libraries, so we have something every month. So we're doing that at DY Library this Thursday. And tomorrow we have a specific event for businesses. So that's in Manly tomorrow morning, and then we have some extra webinars coming up over the course of the next 6 months or so. So yeah, so if you want to have a look at what's going on, just use the QR code, or we'll send something, a link to you in the email that we send out anyway after this webinar. So that's it, I think. We're going to do a Q&A. We have got quite a few questions, which is fantastic. I would really like to ask you all to, after this Q&A, we have just a QR code to a survey, and it means so much to us because it helps us to work out what you want to hear about from us. And so, yeah, so if you could please fill in the survey. And before we get to the survey, let's answer some of these questions. So I'm going to read them out, and then Jimmy, you can answer them. I can see a few more have
Sounds
come in
good.
as well. So Chris said, installing an individual hot water heat pump in an apartment seems difficult in terms of space for the tank and the heat pump unit. How do people usually fit these in?
Great question. It depends what type of apartment. If you're in an apartment like mine, so I live in a 42 unit mid-rise apartment. The answer is you don't. It's pretty difficult because space is the biggest constraint. And practically speaking, you're going to need somewhere for the tank, and you're going to need somewhere for the compressor unit. And um, it is how to phrase this. The compressor unit needs to be outdoors, just like an air conditioning system. And the tank itself sometimes is attached to the compressor, or it can be as a split system. Um, the most feasible place we've seen it done is on the balcony, and you get quite a small tank, and you might get an all-in-one unit. But I would say that you have to be quite motivated because um, to get a hot water heat pump on your apartment balcony, you might need to double check the weight allowance for your balcony. You might need to get your strata manager involved. There may be questions. It tends to be harder if you're in an apartment and your only access to the outdoors is your balcony. If you don't have the other options, you might have your compressor on the balcony and you have your tank indoors, but then most apartments don't have you know, usually next to your balcony is your living room in an apartment, and you don't want a great big water tank in there. So space is a really real challenge for apartment units. What's a lot more feasible is if you're in a townhouse or in an apartment where you're on a ground level and you have an outdoor courtyard area. So that's very common that you can put a hot water heat pump there. Um, Another option is that I know there are companies out there who are exploring the idea of having the tank itself on the roof, and this is different from a solar hot water heater. This is just a water tank itself. It can be installed on a south-facing roof, and it's a hot water heat pump that's kind of roof mounted instead of on the ground, which is useful if you're in a townhouse type situation. But I don't think those products are quite at market yet, just kind of highlighting them so you're aware. But in short, it's hard, and your best bet is if you have a large modern balcony.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. Okay, Alison said a plumber that she spoke to seemed to actively discourage a change to heat pump hot water. How can I assess whether it's more cost effective for my circumstance?
That's a
So
great question.
it is a great one. Alison, I'm on my second hot water heat pump, or we're on our second hot water heat pump. First one lasted 15 years and was absolutely fantastic. So yes, we're on the second one. And interestingly, when I talked to the plumber, who was actually installing one for the neighbour as well, that plumber was not keen on hot water heat pumps because he admitted that he didn't really know much about them, and he preferred to just install gas or something else. And it was really because he actually said he didn't know much about it. So I think there's definitely a task out there for education of tradies. But I'm sure Jimmy will have something else to say about this too.
Yeah, it's a thing we hear a lot, and there's a grain of truth in it, and I'll explain. So where it is generally not correct is exactly what Kat said. If a tradie's been installing gas hot water systems for 20 years, they're just they just tend to naturally dismiss hot water heat pumps because they'll say they're not reliable, they say they don't work, etc. But it's mainly because they just want to stick to what they know. So this education is um, a major feature of the market, and it's only the plumbers who are a bit more forward thinking on top of the technologies who are more familiar with them who are actually going to be really knowledgeable. So not every plumber will be familiar with hot water heat pumps. My suggestion there is if you're doing hot water heat pump research and you find a few good models, the manufacturer usually has recommendations for plumbers that are accredited to use their products and who at least are more knowledgeable in heat pumps in general. So that's the first thing. The grain of truth is that um, when hot water heat pumps first came out, you might remember a period of time with a lot of ads on Facebook or whatnot around $33 heat pumps, hot water heat pumps. And that was because the rebates were larger before, and these installers were offering really cheap units, and the rebate rules allowed you to charge a lower amount with a lower co-payment. And so you had a lot of these rebate chasing installation companies come out, install really, really cheap products, really, really poor installation quality, just to offer you a $33 heat pump, which might break down in a couple, 2 or 3 years. And then they disappear and start a new company. And so a lot of honest plumbers get caught afterwards to come fix the hot water system. And all they see is these failed installations. So they acquire this bad image of hot water heat pumps. But that's just because these were poor quality installers doing poor quality installations with poor quality products. And that is, that's the thing you're trying to avoid, right? That's not the standard hot water heat pump installation. So my advice here is again, find a plumber who's familiar with hot water heat pumps. Make sure they've been around for at least a couple of years, preferably 5 years plus, so you know they're not just trying to spin up new companies and not take responsibility for warranties. And then get a good quality mid-range model, and don't get the cheapest model because that's where you run into a higher risk.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy. Um, we have six more questions just to let you know, Jimmy, so you can
Oh,
pace
all
yourself through
right.
these. Okay, so Dermot said, hey, Jimmy, how advanced is vehicle to grid and vehicle to home technology and legislation? Would a home system comprising solar panels, home battery, and EV, all with vehicle to home, vehicle to grid capabilities, be the ultimate home system?
I love the question. What is the ultimate home system? Um,
What is it?
So the thing to keep in mind is that this is actually a really, I was talking to Kat earlier, this is actually a space, a market, an industry that's actually changing quite quickly. So what is the ultimate home system eventually? It's basically one where every device in your home that's a significant user of electricity, being EV charging, air conditioning, hot water, whatever, and it's all kind of smart and it's interlinked, and you have some sort of centralized load management software where you know how much energy you're using and kind of optimizes everything so you're importing cheaply and exporting when you can make the most money, and it's all very smart and integrated, right? Um, the problem with that is that the technology is not there, right? We're not at this point where you have all of these things that can magically work together. And one of those things is V to G and V to H. So you have some technologies that are really mature, like air conditioning, heat pumps, solar. You have some technologies that are becoming quite mature, like batteries, EVs. And so, and then you have technologies that are not mature, like VPPs, V to G, V to H, energy management at home. So it's like, when do you kind of jump on the train, right? Do you jump on the train after everything is perfected and you've missed out on 20 years worth of savings? Or do you kind of jump on the train now, lock in your savings and try to iterate as you go, as things change? So this is like context, because I will answer your question. This is kind of context as the space we're in. And it's a way to kind of say that we don't really know where it's gonna, or how it's all gonna practically um, lay out, right? We don't know how the regulations are definitely going to land. We don't know um, how it will integrate with all the other products in your home. What we do know is that you can get V to G NVIDIA H EV chargers. They are more expensive, say 5 to 10K compared to your standard EV charger, which will be say 2K, 1 or 2K. And we know there are trials happening around the place. We know they are approved in certain areas. We know that some EVs can support them, but it's not mainstream enough for us to give a definitive answer as to this is good, this is bad, or to be able to provide definitive advice on do this to future-proof yourself. The best thing you can do to future-proof yourself is to get a solar system that's large enough to potentially support everything that you need. And the most practical benefit you can get today is to cycle out your inefficient appliances and power it through your solar. Um, will V to G and V to H be the ultimate home system? So for those who aren't familiar, V to G and V to H means vehicle to home or vehicle to grid. What that means is you're powering your home through the battery in your EV. So this is a technology that's very interesting, very cool. And whether it's right for you also depends on your patterns, right? So if you drive to work every day and you drive home and then you get home at 6 p.m., um, you're relying on your EV having enough charge to power your home at 6 p.m. Because what you don't want is to be charging your EV and powering your home from the grid at 6 p.m. when it's peak and everyone else is getting home. But maybe you have enough capacity and that's fine. Uh, and alternatively, maybe you're always home during the day and you can charge it whenever you want, and your car's kind of there. You only use it in the weekend or something, and maybe your EV and your EV can serve as your battery. So what I'm trying to say is, some households can use a EV as a replacement for a battery due to their lifestyle, and some households may find it more challenging to do so. Um, if you're waiting on getting a battery because you think you're just going to get an EV instead, it's possible that will be the case. That may be possible if that might be suitable based on your lifestyle. But also, it's just the technology is not mature yet, so we don't really know what's going to happen. If you get a battery now, you will get the benefit now. If you get a car for V to G, V to H, you might get a benefit, soon, this year, next year, 5 years. It's just less definite.
Okay. That was a hard one to answer actually, wasn't it? Um, okay. Sorry, we've got another couple of questions that have popped in, so we'll have to keep the answers a little bit shorter. Miranda says, "What's the best way to identify providers?" I'd book in and have a chat with Jimmy and his team. But Jimmy, have you got a quick answer for that?
Providers, depends on what product, but generally speaking, find the companies that care about their reputation. So these are companies that generally have operated for a couple of years. But either they're really, really big and they have good reviews and they're not going to disappear anytime soon. Or they're smaller and more boutique, but you're speaking directly to the owner and they really seem like they take pride in their work. That's kind of the shortcut. There's obviously a bajillion things you can look for, but just get a sense for whether they care about their reputation, how much time they're willing to invest with you.
Great. And if you're looking for solar providers, then we generally suggest that you go through um, word of mouth is often a really good way of doing to do this with quotes. And New Energy Tech, which is basically the offshoot of the Clean Energy Council. So we suggest sourcing solar providers through there. It gives you an extra degree of I guess, peace of mind, because the providers that are on that list, and you can source local providers on that list, they have jumped through a few extra hoops. Doesn't mean that there aren't any others really good ones around as well, though. So what we would say is, if anybody comes knocking on your door, uh, don't talk to them, and be aware of, very careful of social media as well. But you can book in with them, as I said, through the Energy and Solar Expert Advisory Service, and speak to the ZapCat team to help you out with that. Okay. Eco Resi said, "Hi Jimmy, do you know if the Solar for Apartments grant is available for individual properties that form part of a strata property, but installation won't give a shared benefit, i.e. if it's only for the individual strata unit?"
Yes, great question. And I know there's a few questions relating to the solar grants. Maybe we can tackle all of them at
Yep,
once.
yep. Do you want me to tell you? Do you want me to tell you the other ones too?
I'll answer this
Or
one.
answer this one first, and then we'll get the other one.
So, short answer is yes. You just need to, you can, so okay, the grant guidelines say that, first of all, you need to be a class two building. So, some townhouse-like structures are class one buildings, some are class two buildings. So, just confirm with your strata manager that you're class two. If you have an underground kind of car park, that usually means you're class two. And then you can install solar for, as long as you install solar for every unit in the complex at once through the owner's corporation, then you're eligible for the solar grant. But if you want to chat about that more, feel free to book in a consult. But generally speaking, yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Arlen has said our grant application process is going to be really quick because this is probably one you should book in for a chat, Arlen. They say our grant application process stalled. We live in a strata building and applied through the grants process, which was unsuccessful. It appears before we can add solar or EV chargers to our building, we need to upgrade the meter room. Are there any grants available for making meter rooms for solar, battery, EV ready?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, up me meter board, meter room upgrades are a pretty big source of a pretty big bottleneck for many buildings. So I just want to kind of separate two things. Everyone kind of lumps all meter group board upgrades into the same thing. So there are actually a few different things going on. The first one is that the meter board needs to be safe and compliant enough to connect solar to it. Um, Upgrades to facilitate this are actually they are actually covered under the 50% off um, SOAR grant. So I think it's up to 10% of the total installation value you can use to upgrade the meter board itself. So maybe you're aware of this already. Maybe you're one of the unlucky cases where your upgrade is, tens of thousands of dollars, in which case that's pretty bad luck. And I'm not aware of anything specific that will bring that cost down. Um, but also depends on who's told you that you need a meter board upgrade of potentially tens of thousands of dollars because it can be a little bit of a gray area and different electricians can give different opinions as to what's required. So if you haven't already, get a second opinion from an actual installation company who's potentially willing to do the installation and just get a sense check from them. Sometimes companies without too much experience for a meter board, they um, are perhaps too conservative and they want to do everything possible to kind of upgrade it, but it's not always necessary. So if you haven't already, get a second opinion. Um, you should get 50% of the cost off through the SOAR rebate, up to 10% of the total installation value. And finally, this is upgrading this meter board can sometimes be separate to the upgrades you need for EV charging. Because for EV charging, what you're trying to do is you're trying to increase sometimes the total power capacity to the building so there's enough for all the EV chargers. But there are a lot of solutions out there which may allow you to make the most of the power that you do have. And so this is another complex situation. Um, we've seen, but there are, I don't know the situations of your building, but it could be that the upgrades are less than you think you need. Um, it could be that you've assumed that you need a really big, massive level two system for everyone for EV charging, whereas a load balanced level one system will be totally fine and might avoid a bunch of required upgrades. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there might be a way, so feel free to book a chat if you want.
Yeah, definitely. So solar for strata, the strata questions are more complex and really warrant if you want to have a you know if you want Jimmy to spend a bit more time giving you um, more not more meaningful advice but more in-depth advice, then please book in and you can have a double consult with him to talk about Solve for Strata. And yes, it's probably the best way to do it. So Chris, I know you said if there's time, could you touch on EV charging for apartments? Do you have anything quickly to say about that, Jimmy?
Yep. Yep,
Yeah,
I do. So EV charging, I'll just carry on my train of thought from before. When people think of EV charging in an apartment building, people think of getting your Tesla or your Zappi or your Schneider EV chargers, your wall-mounted EV chargers and the entire building having those and you just kind of plugging it into your car. That's what people tend to think of when they think EV charging. But those are EV charging. Those are that's a type of charging called level two charging, which means it's fast. It's your fastest type of charging. But even your standard general purpose outlet that you can just plug a regular household plug into, that will be more than adequate for most households for EV charging. And there are smart versions of these plugs that are appropriate for scale in an apartment that can kind of manage the energy distribution effectively, that can manage billing effectively so the right people get charged. And these alternative level one solutions have the potential to be much cheaper than a level two solution and may require much less electrical upgrades as well. So if you weren't aware of those, look them up. Level one EV charging for Strata. I don't know if there's a lot of content out there on the internet. So again, feel free to book in it for a chat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jimmy. I've just put the link in for people to book in um, to have a chat with your team, Jimmy. Can't always guarantee you're going to get Jimmy, but he has a team of experts. So yeah, so please do book in. They've actually got a few extra. I think they've opened up their calendar a little bit more specifically for people from this webinar to book in over the next week. So what else do we have?
Oh, I see another one regarding
Okay.
the Soul grant.
Yes, let's do that one from Jane. The solar grant. It looks like a project has to be completed by October 2026. Jimmy, could you tell us how long a project would take for solar with 36 units in 4 different buildings? What if there is a long, that's probably something, Jane, it's worth booking in, having a chat directly with Jimmy. But what Jimmy could uh, answer is what if there is a long lead time, especially with good installation
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah. I will say this. If you guys manage to, I would say the thing that takes longer is getting everyone to agree and to pass the AGM. That's harder and takes longer often. And then don't forget, after you pass the AGM or EGM to agree to install solar, you then need to submit your stage two application. And the SOAR team could take months, right? Maybe they're a bit quicker now, but the first batch definitely took months. So I would say that those are probably the parts that take longer. Lead time for installation companies could be as short as 6 weeks, right? You're not going to be waiting months and months for installation, especially if you've engaged them early and they're experienced and they know what they're doing, and you're kind of keeping them updated on the process.
Okay. That would be great, wouldn't it? I think I heard from your team that you've got 7 apartment blocks and the Northern Beaches currently getting to sort of the quote stage, which is absolutely brilliant. And I've spoken to another couple of people in apartments on the Northern Beaches who have been very lucky to be successful with stage 1 of the grant, I think. So they're on to the next stage. So yeah, don't give up. It's a bit of a process, but oh my gosh, it can save a lot of money if you manage to get yourself there. And like I said, Jimmy and his team are absolutely best placed to help you through that process. Now Dermot asked, "Hi Jimmy, with solar panels this has turned into a real solar kind of chat, solar and strata, but that's good. With solar panels, is direct sunlight essential for energy generation, or can partially shaded panels still generate meaningful power for an average household? I have lots of trees around, but my roof still gets a mix of shade and direct sun during daylight hours." I could probably answer that, but Jimmy, do you want to do a short answer? And Dermot, maybe you'd like to book in and Jimmy and his team can actually have a look at your roof
Yeah,
and talk in a bit more detail. But quick answer from Jimmy here.
sure. Yeah, I'll say that if you're booking for a consult, book a video consult so we can actually share our screen. You can look at your roof and we kind of talk you through it. But I would say short answer is yes, it's possible. When you say partially shaded, what I am imagining is that your roof has a lot of sun at some times of the day, but the shadow moves across your roof so that some parts of the day it is shaded. In that situation, yes, that's totally possible. If you mean partially shaded as in there's always a little bit of shade on your panels, then that's a different story. That's quite hard. Um, so modern systems can cater for if you have shade at some times of the day, um it'll increase your cost because you want a different type of system that can where each panel is kind of optimized on an individual basis. So, one panel that's shaded doesn't affect the neighbor. That's the main consideration when it comes to system design. And this might increase the cost of your system by 10 to 40%. And obviously the panels that are shaded won't be generating any electricity while they are shaded. So what does this mean in practice? It means that your system will be more expensive and you'll generate a little bit less solar and it'll make your payback worse. In some cases, it makes your payback really, really bad, so it's not worth it. In some cases, your payback is still pretty good. Maybe it's like 5 or 6 years instead of 2 or 3 years if in an ideal scenario. So it depends on how bad the shade is. It depends on how much electricity you're currently using. So I wouldn't, unless your roof is constantly shaded all the time, I wouldn't write it off just yet.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy. Jimmy, would you mind just putting the next slide up so that the survey QR code pops up?
Yes.
Um, Thank you. I think we're just about run out of time. I think we've covered off all of the questions in here. Please, please use the QR code. Phil, I can see your message that you on a mobile, so you don't have the QR code. We find that people are much more inclined to actually complete this quick survey if they do it right now before they sign off for the night, rather than if I send it in an email. Generally, they don't get completed. So I think in a summary, it's a big long journey for people, and like Jimmy was saying, I think it's just to take sort of bite-sized chunks, which is what I'm doing, and sort of have a bit of a 5-year plan or whatever that plan may be. Use the council website for information. Book in for a chat through the Energy and Solar Expert Advisory Service to talk to Jimmy and his team with any questions. You can book in more than once if you need to. So we're here to help you. So please make use of us as much as you can. And we hope this evening has been a helpful evening about how to electrify your home or business.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Great. Thanks, guys.